Hey guys, what's up? This is John, and this is going to be a video response on the topic of milking the cash cow. I saw one of somebody I've known for a while, Bob, one of his videos about Square Enix milking the cash cow, saying that they're only going to be making mainstream games. Now this isn't necessarily just about Square Enix; it's just about the topic in general, about why I necessarily think this happens, and why I do think this happens is because that developers need to make games that are going to sell fast. Because the thing is, if a game that does not sell in its first couple weeks, it doesn't sell well. Even if it's received well, and even if it spreads through word of mouth, the majority of the copies that are going to be sold are going to be used copies. That's just because that's just how the market works now. How often do you buy a new game that came out 3, 4 years ago? It's not very often. You think back before there was much of a used game market. A lot of games they would sell millions and millions of copies over time. Now, when you see games selling a few million copies, it's all within the first couple weeks or first couple days, even. You know, um, it's really just playing it safe now rather than milking the cash cow with doing that stuff like that. When you're putting in all that money into a new IP, it's something that nobody's ever heard of or nobody's ever had any experience with. They would rather buy right away the titles that they know will already be good. Instead with a new IP or something like that, they would wait, read reviews, see what other people say that buy the game right away, and then buy a used copy. And when you think about it, um, uh, how this affects developers is because like, say if a game sells, I'm just gonna say some numbers here, 20,000 copies. Um, all right, and say like in the first week they sell 10,000, and then after that they sell another 5,000 new copies. No, the other 5,000 that's left over are all going to be used copies. That's a quarter of the copies sold are used copies. And let's say this is like, another example would be think of the new Devil May Cry game that's coming out that has a character that does not even look like Dante and doesn't resemble him, resembles the developer. What I would think is because why they did that is because they really wanted to make a new IP game with this new character that the creator had in mind, looking like himself. Instead, what he did was he made it Devil May Cry. Kept the same character design, just called him Dante, and then so that the game will sell right away because people are familiar with Devil May Cry. Just what I think about the situation. That's why we see a Call of Duty every year. We don't see a lot of everything's a sequel these days, and it's really sad when you think of all the new IPs that came out this generation. There's Uncharted, Gears of War, No More Heroes. Not a lot that those are just a few that come off the top of my head. I mean, there's obviously more, but that's all. Just my point is, there's not a lot of new IPs, and I think that's the reason why. And it seems like they're milking out the cash cow like that. And DLC too. Like to keep on, like a lot of people see DLC as milking the cash cow, and in some cases it is. I feel like Capcom releasing downloadable costumes is definitely just there to make money. Even of course it obviously doesn't change the gameplay experience. The gameplay is exactly the same, but some people like that. That's something like I don't really see a big deal with them releasing. If you don't like it, don't buy it. It's whatever. Um, However, I don't feel that them updating the games every so often is necessarily milking the cash cow. That's something that's been going on in fighting games for the past 20 years, since 1991 when Street Fighter 2 came out, and they updated it even a couple times a year until they had the version they felt was best. And oh fucker, sorry, and most suitable for tournament play. And that's really what it is. And if you think about it in the perspective of somebody from the fighting game community, and in tournaments and stuff. If they didn't update these games every so often and they kept the unbalances from the old versions, from the first version, and that's the only version they ever had. A lot of these games wouldn't have the longevity that it has had. For example, Street Fighter Two. If World Warriors was the first one where you can't even do mirror matches, and they were like, yeah, there was just the original 8 characters. That game would not last as long as it has today. When you added in the Shadowloo characters, the new challengers, you added the Turbo, you added Supers, and made all the balance tweaks to make it what it became at its latest version. That has lasted since 1994 until now. That's I don't think that it would have been as competitively viable as it is now. Same thing with it's just nothing new to fighting games. The only difference is now that they're on arcades and you have to actually buy the physical copy now instead of being able to go to an arcade and just pop in a couple like some quarters and play like that. But hey, whatever. That's just how it is right now. When you think about games that don't get updated, how many of them have really stayed competitively viable? There's MVC 2 and CVS 2. That's really all that I can think of that stayed there for a really long time. And I think most of it is because there weren't any new games really coming out, any new fighting games coming out from Capcom, or really anybody else for that matter. A lot of them weren't getting a lot of attention. You know, Tekken 6 is another example. Like that got updated once in 2008. Come 2011 Evo, it was like really small turnout and shit. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents. And anyways, guys, I'll see you around.